Welcome to the Brain Software Podcast, episode 191, coming at you from the Hypnotic World Epicenter, Toronto, Canada. I'm Chris Thompson. Today, Mike Mandel and I look at a bunch of cool tools, including decisions and imagination. So stay tuned.
Disclaimer. Warning. This podcast is arcane and brilliant, just like you are. That's why you'll love it and fully appreciate and understand it, because if you don't, you've probably been shoofing the goofer too much, so just admit it.
What sleek reasoning can establish the social norms and engage much more than mere association? What does the Branson Protocol tell us about these matters? How much pressure can the carotid sinus adapt to before even the most dersative and gavus among us press at the blots? Does Magna Carta mean nothing to England? Did she die in vain?
Oh, shut up!
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. But whatever happened to that old tranquility we used to know?
These are days of victory!
So welcome back to the 42nd Dimension, the self-confessed healing bandage of the hypnotic first aid kit. The man who turned wizardry into an Olympic sport. And the very chainsaw of trance. Mike Mandel!
Yes, Chris. See, I came in at a bit of an angle. That was interesting. My neck's okay. All is good. Thank you for ibuprofen.
And I've had plenty of coffee here, so we're ready to go.
And I want to point out, I'm wearing a new Michael Kors beanie, they call them in the U.S. We call them toques.
Yeah.
Beanie to me is something you put a propeller on. But this was $79. I'm not kidding. Canadian.
It must be
on
wool.
sale for 20.
Oh,
winners,
nice.
winners.
$20. That's a good.
And we're in my Wu-Tang clan.
Here, I'll give you a bell
man.
ring for that.
Thanks, buddy. Give me one for Wu-Tang.
Okay,
Long live the
now-
Wu-Tang.
There we go.
All right, let's go.
Now, especially for those audio people, you're not going to care about what we're wearing because
Sure they
it's
are,
irrelevant.
Chris. They need to be
All right.
told.
So this is a podcast, episode 191. We were talking about this. We were planning what we were going to talk about, and we came up with two really great topics. Decisions and imagination. They fit in so wonderfully well together, as we'll explain. Before we get into the actual content, we need to make sure we pre-frame with the words, the three
Think
words.
Tank words of the day, generated randomly from Savo Bukacek's Think Tank. So here we are.
Let me see what we got here. All right. The first one is bleariness. Bleariness. Now, that's an interesting one because we always talk about that as an external.
Well, let's go through all three first, and then we'll unpack
all right,
them.
all
the
right.
second one is journal.
Ooh, and the third one is, wait for it, anticipate.
Good one, Chris. I like the way you made them wait with anticipation. That's why they pay him the big bucks.
That's it.
Now listen,
Thanks,
bleariness. What does bleariness mean to you other than how you wake up every freaking morning?
Yeah, that's what I mean. When I think about bleariness, I think about the way someone's eyes look when they come out of trance.
Or out of a night in Las Vegas.
Sure, really just bleary-eyed.
Yeah.
Bleariness. What does it mean other than that?
Bleariness to me means also because of the mucky eyes, because of, Demodex infections and so on, people are not seeing clearly. They're
seeing bleary
There's
instead
a
of clear.
murkiness. There's cloudiness. So we want to ensure that everything we're doing avoids bleariness and is crystal clear and cogent.
Because you don't want to be singing, I can see bleary now. Wait, that doesn't make sense.
No,
Okay.
we definitely don't want to be singing it. We'll edit that out.
Yeah, I'm not a singer.
What about
in case you
journal?
want-
What does journal say to you?
Well, journal, I'm thinking about journaling, the process of writing down your notes and your thoughts.
Yeah, and thinking that someone's going to find them someday and that they'll be interesting when in reality it's just
They're not.
narcissistic
There we go.
splendor. Yeah.
I'm thinking of journaling, just taking note of what's important to you, maybe what you're feeling, what you're thinking, whatever it is.
All right, but I think a journal is also something put out by a journalist.
Yes.
Where they track different
Yeah,
things
like a
going
medical
on.
journal too. also.
Right, there is that. Well, what about anticipate?
Oh, well, wait for it. I've
Shut
got a
up.
good. No, I don't anticipate. We all know what that means. So yeah, to be. I wouldn't even say. It makes me think of looking forward to something, but it doesn't necessarily have to be looking forward. You can anticipate pain. You can anticipate pleasure. You can anticipate
surgery.
Yeah, which may be something that causes you anxiety or something that you're really looking forward
because
to.
it's then going to be over with.
The yeah. So, okay, there we go.
Okay, so let's see if we
how
can
they fit
work those in to our, because that's the whole point, is to map them across into the content. And because we're talking about decisions and imagination and much more today, let's talk about decisiveness first of all. Like, what the heck is decisiveness?
Well, decisiveness, decision making. It's an interesting thing. So, should we talk about why we even brought this into?
I think that would be a good idea.
So
I decided that you should.
Last week, when we were here doing other work, not a podcast, we were looking through a copy of a book on my bookshelf that I bought many, many years ago called "Awaken the Giant Within" by Tony Robbins.
Right.
Now, that was his second book. His first book was Unlimited Power, which I bought because back in 1993, when you presented Brain Software as your keynote lecture, Carleton University, where I was a second year student at the time, actually.
Right.
You had a copy of your Brain Software handouts at the end, and at the back was a recommended reading list. One of the books was Unlimited Power by Tony Robbins, Anthony Robbins, and I went out and bought it. And I found it to be transformational. Many years later, of course, became a Tony Robbins fan and bought his second book, Awaken the Giant Within. Turns out I had never finished reading it. And I thought, I'm gonna read this book. I'm gonna finally read the whole thing. And then what did you do?
Yeah, I bought Unlimited Power first. Then I bought Awaken the Giant Within, which I thought was even better, actually. He'd gone further with it. And my wife, when she did one of her many purges, where we say in my house, she's like my mom was in the regard that if something isn't nailed down, it's out the door.
You haven't touched that book in a couple of years.
Said,
so
well,
why would you want to
keep one do you want? One or the other, which is a false dichotomy.
Yeah.
It should have been, or keep them both.
Yeah, keep them both.
So, but I didn't back then because I was younger and stupider. This is about 2 years ago. It was literally about 2 years ago. We did a purge. So she got rid of Awaken the Giant Within. I had a nice pristine hardcover one with highlights. And I thought, damn it, I'm buying a new one.
Yeah. And
so I ordered it on Amazon Prime, had it the next day, had it in like 16 hours, which is incredible. And I'm going back through it. It's a good book.
It's your competitive nature. You don't want me to be reading the book and be more up to speed on the content.
I don't have a competitive nature. I always win.
That's hilarious. All right. So I started rereading from the beginning, Awaken the Giant Within. And
coffee.
Of course, it's a fantastic book. Highly recommended. We're big fans of everything Tony Robbins. Everything.
Well, don't put a blanket
we're big
statement
fans
like that.
of.
If he winds up murdering someone, you can say,
exactly.
Chris Thompson approves murder.
We're totally
if Tony Robbins does it. Yeah.
Tony Robbins has some phenomenal ways of teaching things. And one of the first things he talks about in Awaken the Giant Within is the power of decisions. And it's one of those things where you can read it and go, oh yeah, it's not really that simple. He's just making it sound like it's that simple. He basically says, as soon as you actually decide something and really mean it, not just, well, I'm sort of thinking I'll get in shape. No, I've decided I'm a fit person from now on. So
there's a commitment to it.
There's a commitment to it. And once the commitment is made, once you've made the decision, it's done. The hard part is done. He describes it as the hard part is really actually making a decision that you mean. And once you mean it, it's done. The rest is now it's part of your identity. Let's say if you decide you're a fit person, whatever it is. And I was looking at this going, and I know I'm going to hand it off to you in a moment. I'm hogging the puck here on the microphone.
Yeah.
But basically, I had this epiphany that, you know what? It really is as freaking easy as that. You just have to decide. And this will tie in with the imagination stuff we're going to come to next. But what's your thought on decisions?
Well, I've decided not to answer that.
There you go.
No, but you're right. It's my thought on it is it's probably far more crucial to having a good life than people realize.
Yeah.
Being able to make a decision and stick with it. Now we'll get to the whole thing about sticking with decisions, but I loved what you said yesterday, and you can imagine how it wounds me to admit that. But you actually said decision is ignition. And I think that was original to you. And I wrote it down. It was so good.
It just rhymed nicely, I guess. Decision, ignition. Yeah, they're both shun words, which means we can say ignition.
Yeah, or decision is ocean because it's a sh word.
So, decision seems like ignition. That rhymes better. A more appropriate metaphor would be putting the car into drive.
Well, yeah, because you having two electric cars, two Teslas in your fleet, the whole concept of ignition is something that you probably, even as a mechanical engineer, you don't even understand it anymore.
It doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah.
I drive by gas stations and I say, hey, there's one of them gas stations people used to use.
One of them gas stations.
I know, I just
like
saying
it's
it
the
that way.
excitement of it.
It annoys my kids.
Here's one of them.
Hey, it's one of them gas stations. It's really annoying to my children.
What's annoying to us too.
But if
annoying
you make a decision and you mean it, everything changes.
Well,
at least that's your starting point.
Exactly. Now think about it, Chris, because I said decisiveness is the ability to make strong and powerful decisions. This is decisions that need to be made. That to me is someone who is decisive. They don't waffle. They don't sit around shoofing the goofer. They actually make a decision and act on it, right? But what I said was in the notes here, there are decisions that we make every single day and probably aren't aware of them.
There are. Yeah, for sure. There are decisions that we make all the time. And then there are decisions that we want to make, we think we've made, but we haven't taken any action whatsoever.
Oh, you're losing me
them,
there,
right?
son. What do you mean there's decisions we think we've made?
Well, okay, I'll give you an example. So I was having a great marketing meeting a few weeks ago with our agency that handles our marketing stuff. And we had made a decision that we're going to test out a certain offer on a checkout form.
Okay.
I thought, oh, that's great. Yeah, that's a really good thing. We should definitely test that out, because how will we know if it performs well unless we do it?
Sounds good so far.
Well, 2-3 weeks later,
yeah,
we still haven't done it yet. Why?
Yeah.
Because I've been procrastinating, because I have a million things on my to-do list.
Right.
And so as I'm
prioritization.
I'm reading Tony Robbins going, The Power of a Decision, get to the end of the chapter, and he's summarizing everything about decisions and says, never leave the site of a decision without taking an action towards. It doesn't mean do it. Doesn't mean you have to complete the whole task.
But start the process, right?
Yeah. So if you've ignitioned, is that okay? If you've ignitioned,
yeah,
at least drive a few meters.
Yeah.
Do something. Move forward a little bit. And so I was sitting there, go, okay, well, what's the decision that I've made? Well, it's to do this test on this order form. Well, heck, that would only take me 5 to 10 minutes to do.
So you don't even have to take a small action. You can actually do it.
I did the whole thing right then and there.
Yeah.
And I realized, if I just decide I'm going to do it and then take the actual action. But I loved it. And I don't think he's ever said this, but I like the idea of saying, never leave the scene of the crime without taking the action. So the crime
without
in this
hiding
case
the body.
Your decision is the crime, right? Never leave the scene of the crime without taking some action towards it. And I just think it's a very powerful thing to do. So it's
I like it. And in the case, despite trying to find hilarious things to say, I'm going to go to the serious point here. Mm-hmm. But what you said is really interesting, because taking some degree of action towards that right away, the scene of the crime, whatever you want to call it. But you said in this case, the decision itself was dealing with something that was so minor. That you did the whole thing right away.
Yeah. I mean,
put my foot up.
If you think let's brainstorm a few things. If somebody had decided, maybe we can go back and forth a bit on this. Let's say you've decided, I used the example of earlier, I'm a fit person and I don't want to be out of shape anymore. I am getting myself in shape. Okay. So what is like one action that you might do, Mike, if you had made that decision?
Oh, you might plan to structure it into your life. I might say, okay, so tomorrow morning at 9, that's when it all, or I could say, I'm just going to drop down and do 20 freaking push-ups right now to show that I've done it.
Yeah, you could do 20 push-ups, or you could sit down with your calendar and actually schedule the 20-minute workouts that you're going to do, or whatever
20-minute workout, I remember
or
that. Or
if you've decided that you're changing your diet, you could walk over to the kitchen and you could pick up something that's crap that you know you shouldn't be eating anymore and toss it in the garbage can where it belongs.
Right.
Or you could make your new grocery list, or you could actually just go out to the grocery store, or you could go online and sign up for the gym that you've been wanting to join.
Anything else?
Or whatever. There's a million things you could do.
So
right?
taking
baby steps.
Taking the initiative right away, even something small can be enough to be almost like a tripwire to start the process.
That's a really great way to think about it, a tripwire. Yeah.
I learned that from you.
Yes.
Although I knew about them from Vietnam as well. It takes me back.
That makes sense. So yeah, deciding breaks procrastination. We've talked about that. What do you want? Do you want to talk about decisiveness and handwriting?
We'll get there. Are decisions always conscious though?
I don't think they are. I think they become, you can force them to be conscious. You can sit down and
just like breathing, you can force it to be conscious.
Exactly. I can say, I'm going to decide to breathe deeply now. Okay, wonderful. I can decide I'm going to go work out now, or I'm going to decide to order new equipment for our podcast studio.
Or you can put it in your journal so you remember to do it later and look at it with anticipation.
Or you can unconsciously, as some people often do, decide that you're going to go eat a meal right now. How many times have people said to us, oh, I just found myself opening the cupboard and grabbing some food? Well, you've made a decision based on some unconscious pattern at that moment, right? You weren't even aware of it until you go, oh, I'm standing in front of the fridge or the open cupboard.
Right. And I think now, Chris, ever since our government here in Canada has decided to make recreational cannabis available to everybody in corner stores,
you bring that up a lot.
There's going to be a lot of people opening fridges and just standing there, standing, eating in the eatery.
I'm concerned with the frequency with which you bring that particular change.
I just find it interesting that now that it's completely legal and has been for a few years, and there's like 5 cannabis stores.
Yeah, suddenly it's not a taboo topic.
It's amazing that society has not crumbled as everyone was anticipating.
Well, I guess the bottom line is that anyone who wanted to use that stuff was probably already using it. So,
well, here's you're going to love this. But those people are now looking at life with a sense of bleariness.
This
is fantastic.
Hilarious.
It's just fantastic.
Oh,
okay, now
man.
look. We said about always conscious. No, deciding conveys an enormous power.
Oh yeah. I want to bring up something that was on my mind a moment ago when you were talking, and I was doing my best to honor the not interrupting each other because we realized that the audio gets all messed up when we talk over each other. But remember when we had Melissa Tears in Toronto a few years ago, and she was teaching a weekend class on integrative addictions solutions.
Yes, I do. It was brilliant.
Which is a wonderful it's a video course. It's available on our website as a guest training, by the way, and it's really reasonably priced, and it's an amazing set of videos.
We love Melissa
for hypnosis training. But what she pointed out is, let's say that somebody is an alcoholic or a smoker, or even if they like use cocaine, they were I know where you're going in your head because I said smoker. When
yeah, we got to edit this out. Okay,
we're not editing.
No, we didn't say anything.
Yeah,
so it's
exactly.
all right.
It's totally fine.
We still can't detect the telepathic stuff. You heard my thoughts.
When I said that,
brilliant.
I thought I better look over to check if his status changed.
See, I would have been thinking, don't look at Chris.
Yes.
But I had to.
I had to check. So, all right. So she pointed out that even people who are using hard drugs like cocaine, most of the time, I think she said 90% of them.
It was 90%.
When they stop, they have simply decided, that's it. I'm done with this drug. I am not a user of this drug anymore.
Right.
And they're done. They quit cold turkey.
Yeah.
There's no
going to support groups. Nothing.
What do you call it? Yeah, like there's no going to a detox, or there's no 12-step program. It's just, I'm freaking done. And it was an interesting thing. And I think that underscores the power of a decision when someone actually decides. And Tony Robbins talks about in this book too, right? When someone decides they're not a smoker anymore, remember, don't use a negative label. I am not a smoker. What are you instead?
Stop! You're killing me.
This is like fractionation.
I'm trying to stay away from this, and you're just bringing it back.
So you decide that instead you're a healthy air breather. You're a lover of life.
You're Charles Tebbets. Yeah. Okay.
This is a refund written all over it.
Oh man, doesn't it? Anybody wants to know what this is about? If you ever meet us in person, we'll tell you. But we're not going to have it on record.
We're not putting this on YouTube or on our podcast.
No. Okay.
But the power of the decision was, in the case of, as Tony Robbins said, with someone who had a smoking habit, or somebody, as Melissa Tears pointed out, had either an alcohol overuse habit or a cocaine habit or whatever it was, they just quit. They just decide, I don't do that anymore. And it's done.
That's very interesting. And my mentor, Derek Balmer, would completely agree with that. He definitely believed people have far more power over their states than they realize. They say they can't do it, but they're speaking from a disempowered state saying that. You get in a good state, you discover you can do it. Yeah.
Now,
I brought something of value in, man.
There you go. You did. Now, I realize we're already like 20 minutes into this podcast. We want to make sure we also talk about...
Now, you said decisiveness shows in handwriting.
We're going to work on not talking over each other.
I'm not interested. Decisiveness shows in handwriting. And this is true, as does indecisiveness. You'll know the final strokes at the end of a word. So say you're writing, the letter E is at the end of a word in cursive script. So you got your loop of the E, and then there's a final. If the pen stops dead and lifts with a blunt ending, that is someone who's decisive. If a final stroke, no matter what the letter, stops by feathering out as you're gradually lifting the pen as, oh yeah, I think I'm finished with this word. Maybe not. I can't decide.
It makes sense with the
That
brain.
is indecisiveness, and it will show in your writings. You can build in some decisiveness by having the pen stroke stop.
So finish your letter and you're done. Lift your pen
Right.
straight up. And that'll teach
Now-
your brain to be decisive.
I've written this line, Chris, and this bullet point. I'm really happy with it. I want to see what you think of it.
Okay.
A decision can be a line in the sand for self or others. What do you make of that?
Well, I love the line in the sand. Think of it as a threshold, right?
Yeah.
And in fact, when we say that when you're at threshold, which we call there's got to be change, it's got to be me, it's got to be now, then you're ready for change. That's kind of like saying I've made a decision, isn't it?
it is very much so.
A line in the sand. But what do you mean by self and others?
Well, it can be, as you said, about, okay, I'm back to working. I'll be working out tomorrow, and here's what I'm going to do just to put it in my calendar and get my workout clothes already. I've decided and I've taken action to start it. But with others, it can be, okay, that's the final time I'm taking that from you. If you
absolutely.
treat me like this again, you're out of my freaking life.
Yeah,
or you're in the emergency ward,
interpersonal
Yeah.
relationships,
Yeah.
yes, because you deciding to work out, something you do on your own, or you deciding I'm going to reread this book because I love this book, wonderful.
Or
That's-
deciding to quit smoking.
That's an easy decision because it doesn't involve anyone else.
Right.
But what if the decision involves somebody that you have a relationship with? It's your boss and he's a jerk to you and you've decided. In fact, I was just telling you as we were starting this podcast, I used to know a guy back when I was in my stock analyst days. There was an analyst and the guy that worked for him, which is called the associate, he found an error in the financial model and he called up the guy, his associate, and said,
Why are you putting your baby finger out?
phone call.
No.
Yeah.
Second City.
Okay.
Hold it.
What do you do?
Hold the phone. You hold
Phone
the
gesture, right.
That's
okay.
right.
He picks up the phone, calls his associate. And
Yeah.
we'll call him Jerry just because that's
Okay.
hilarious. Hey, Jerry. Yeah, there's a mistake in the model. Find it and fix it or don't show up on Monday.
Wow.
Like needle in a haystack. These are big spreadsheets with lots of tabs and formulas and stuff. Imagine calling someone and saying, oh yeah, there's a mistake. In other words, there's a freaking needle in a haystack. Go find it. And if you can't find it, you're fired.
Yeah, someone
Well, that's
should call
kinda-
him
That's kind of
a bastard.
Yeah, that's
Now,
definitely
I've got two
bastardish.
great examples of
So you-
decisiveness in a huge, what's that?
Would you want to decide in that kind of situation, this is someone I don't want to work for anymore? You think that might cause
Exactly.
you? There you go.
Exactly. Now, here's two great examples from history, both of which may be somewhat apocryphal, but the stories are very interesting. Cortez gets to the New World.
Oh,
Spanish
yeah.
conquistadors arrive in the New World and total commitment, like Jack Ripper in Dr. Strangelove.
I know where this is
Total commitment. The story is that they burned their ships. So there was no going back.
That's a decision.
In reality, he probably didn't burn them. I've looked at the history in this. But they did destroy them.
Yeah, there
And
you go.
that's a line in the freaking
So
sand.
that is a
isn't it?
line. You're saying there is no undo button for this decision, right?
Exactly. That's the way to put it, isn't it? No undo button. I said scratch my
there
forehead.
ain't no undo
This
button.
is acrylic. It doesn't itch. Not itchy like wool. Now, the interesting thing is, Cortez, when they burn the ships like that, I think he would have just turned to them and in Spanish said, any questions?
I would have said this stuff really comes out.
Yeah. Here's the other one. Now, when I used to tour England and Wales and Britain doing hypnosis shows in
Allegedly.
the 90s.
Allegedly.
Shut up. 5 times I did tours of Britain. Each time I did 12 shows in 2 weeks. It was hard work. But one of the interesting things that stayed in my mind was we went to Coventry. And Coventry Cathedral, there's bits of it still standing there. And I was at the university there and I'm looking at this bombed out cathedral from the German bombs in the war. And the story is told that Churchill, because Britain, through the work of Alan Turing and all those brilliant women who worked for him, the code breakers, had broken the Enigma code of the German code machine.
Yeah.
Churchill knew that the Germans were going to do their next raid on Coventry, but he didn't warn them. He sacrificed the city because he decided to not tell them, because if they knew and everyone was ready, they'd know that the Enigma code was broken.
So he needed to pick the lesser harm, which was
Lesser of two evils, I think is the phrase. Yes.
There's two evils
Expediency.
here. Well, there's two harms that are up. If you do anything that signals that you know that the code was broken, much more damage is
Okay,
going
I'm
to come.
not appreciating the gesture. They're more the kind of gestures you use
There
if
you
you're,
go.
if you're trying to illustrate some sort
Don't
of sexual
point out the
tension.
gestures, because there's people on the audio version that are going to wonder what
Okay,
the
Chris
heck
has just
is
got his
going on.
arms out really tense, and there's a tense sexuality about it that's stressing
Do you want
me.
me to get back to what I was saying?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So there's two choices here. You can
He didn't
either
laugh.
acknowledge that the code has been broken and know they're going to change it, and now there's more devastation coming.
Yeah.
Or you let a city fall, which is a pretty devastating thing to think about. Having to, a lot of people are going to get harmed.
And it may be apocryphal, but remember they needed to keep the Enigma code, the fact they've broken it from the German wolf packs of subs. They worked spectacularly well in subs, and as a Brit, it's very hard for me to say that. But anyway, so those are two extreme examples. Chris, what decisions have changed your life?
Well, I'd say the first one was to learn NLP and hypnosis. There's so many decisions, right? But I can think of back in 1993 when I got to see your brain software keynote the first time that I saw it. I was like, wow, this stuff is amazing. And I realized
comes out.
I realized that I did not know anything about all these amazing ways to communicate. And I decided that I want to get really good at this stuff.
There's a
This is
decision.
going to matter to me. I never felt that I had particularly good communication skills. I was not really all that comfortable with things like public speaking. But because I now had awareness of a new set of tools, I thought, okay, I'm gonna definitely be using these in my career. And I went on to become quite comfortable with the idea of presenting in
Chris,
front of groups
you're
or
an
whatever
excellent
it is.
presenter. You're 10 out of 10.
And that only happened because I was aware that, there's these language skills and there's this idea that you can actually be congruent and confident.
There's a
about what
structure
you're doing.
to it, and you decided to learn the
Yes,
structure.
so I decided
That's interesting.
I also decided when I was in my 20s, I decided I want to learn about investing.
Well, you certainly learned about that.
I learned
son.
a lot about investing. Credit The Motley Fool back in the day because they taught the importance of learning how to identify good quality companies that are leaders in a particular industry, that are growth oriented, that you can buy and hold, the Warren Buffett style. Don't sell stuff.
Buy good companies
Don't
and hold on to them.
Yeah, and I very early on learned trading. In this case, we're talking about stocks, but trading, trying to pick the ups and the downs, that's a fool's errand. That is a waste of time, in my opinion. And I know there are people listening who maybe think that.
You've certainly got.
But that was a decision that I made. A decision was, I'm going to learn to invest the way that these guys teach, and that went on to be a very, very useful thing to learn.
He's a very, very rich man.
What about you? What have you decided?
It's related to what you said. I can think of two key decisions in my life that changed everything. One of them was my friend Ron, who's no longer my friend because he's a dick, but he got me into Tony Robbins. It's interesting that they both followed that sort of train. He had been watching the the late night infomercials for Personal Power, his tape course. And I said, what a bunch of crap. And he looked at me and he said, Mike, he said, that's not like you. He said, you're a smart guy. For you to comment on something you know absolutely nothing about.
That's it.
He said, I'm surprised. And I went, whoa, that hits home. So being such a freaking nice guy and not wanting to upset him, I decided to learn about this. So I wound up getting the tape set. And I would go for a walk with my bull terrier lockjaw, listen to the next lesson. And I thought, man, I want to learn this stuff. Yeah. And then I wound up studying NLP, becoming an NLP master prac, an NLP trainer. But that was the start. It opened the doors to so many things. Now, the other one was working with you.
Yeah.
And when you made the offer that you wanted us to work together as a business, I was a stage hypnotist at the time.
This was doing 2008, right?
I was doing keynotes, and Chris said to me, he said, I want to make it so you're never going to have to do another keynote. I thought, that's not going to happen. It did. I've done 2 keynotes in 2 years. We have such a blast. And I learned the lesson of collaboration. I've said this many times, which is so hard for me to do as an Enneagram 8 and a freaking alpha male and all these wonderful things. But I recognized I was going to collaborate and work with this guy. And that was one of the best decisions I ever made, and the resonance of it is still going on to this day.
Okay, now we're really far into
I know,
this.
so we have a special report we should go to and then come back.
Yeah, let's go to our special report. And then when we come back, I'm going to make sure I wrap up on the decision.
Yeah.
And we'll move on to imagination, but I have a tie-in comment that I want to make.
Looking
So
forward
let's
to
move
it.
to the special report, and then we'll finish up on this.
All right.
We have a special report from Hypno North, Meaford, Ontario.
Yeah, how are you tonight? Thanks once again. Yeah, it's your old pal Brado here with the latest hypnosis update from Meaford, Ontario, and also now podcasting in Owen Sound and Shallow Lake with the listeners there. Well, they say you can't fix stupid, and damn and fry it, they're right. Yesterday it was effing snowing again, so I walked over to Eddards to see if he'd be in to help me muck out the dairy cattle pen, because there was dick all else to do, and the same as always in this godforsaken part of Canada where nothing ever happens. So I phoned Eddard. He said he was making breakfast. I'd come over and eat that, and I'm always up for a power breakfast, so I said I would. I was really hungry, to tell the truth, because I'd forgotten to go into town and shop for food and had nothing but a couple of bowls of Lucky Charms the night before for supper. And I just finished reading the first couple of chapters in The Catcher in the Rye, which I read every year at this time because I love the part when Holden Caulfield's leaving the dorm and yells, "Sleep tight, you morons," and then almost falls down the stairs and that. Pretty well sums up my life here in Meaford. I thought it'd be good to go to Eddard's place and have a big bacon and egg breakfast with toast and orange juice and Tim Hortons coffee and a couple of donuts and that. So when Eddard invited me, I said yes. Well, as soon as I walked in, there was a problem because Duder was still there, and he was helping Eddard cook breakfast, which consisted of a couple of dry heels of white bread fried in bacon grease, cooked on a Coleman stove on the damn kitchen table because the propane had run out and that, and the house was cold as all get out, and instead of coffee, Eddard had made some kind of herbal tea that smelled like somebody had beaten a skunk to death with a salmon. So I passed on the power breakfast, and we got talking about Eddard thinking that sign advertising they were selling campfire wood was a sign for a frickin' camp by the name of Camp Firewood, which I mentioned a while back in one of these updates. Well, Duder was fascinated by the story of the misunderstood sign, so much you'd think it was a picture of Shania Twain in a thong or something, and he put his boots and coat and gloves on and that, went outside without saying nothing. After a bit, I got pretty bored and cold and left to see if there were any Lucky Charms left to eat at my place. Well, I get outside, there's effing Duder standing at the side of the road holding a sign trying to hitch a ride like Jack the frickin' Ride Hitcher. But listen to this. Duder was so fascinated by the story of the firewood and the camp and that, and Eddard's dumbass mistake, he decided to thumb a ride to Minden to look at the sign and take a picture of it with his iPhone 4, which was a stupid idea when you consider this is Canada, and it was about 1 billion degrees below zero, and I mean Fahrenheit, and it would take him about 4 hours to get to Minden, another 4 to get back if anybody even stops to pick him up. So I go over to tell him he's a dick and that, and I see the sign, but it doesn't even say Minden on it. It says his effing name, Duder. Turns out he heard the podcast where I mentioned him and thought he was famous now, and that somebody saw the sign, they'd stop and would drive him to Minden and gave him an autograph. I was so depressed by this point, by the sheer stupidity of it all. So I tell him he's not effing famous and that he's actually a dick, and Duder just stands there gaping in the gapery and that, and the snow is getting worse, so I just walked home because the whole sickening thing of a day was bitched and that. So this has been your old pal Brado up in Meaford, Ontario, reporting on the world of hypnosis up here in the Great White North and that. So thanks once again, and good night.
Okay, so we're back from the special report. Let's wrap up on decisions. So chapter 1 or 2, whatever it is, where Tony Robbins brings this up in Awaken the Giant Within, talks about decisions. And it seems like it's this simplistic thing. Well, if you just decide, okay, why would you ever need a hypnotist? Why would you ever need a life coach or a psychiatrist or anybody to help you out if you could just decide? Well, because there's a lot more to it, right? The decision is the starting point. That's your ignition. And you still need to put stuff into action. And often you need schema, you need resources. You need to change the way your unconscious mind automatically reacts. And that's where I think we can tie this into the next topic, which is imagination. Because so let's think about this. Remember when I brought this up with you, when I said imagination it's an interesting thing. We talk about it all the time. Like imagination is the ticket to a great life. It's the ticket to problems too, though, isn't it?
Yes.
So
it can
let's
be.
say you're out. Let's say we're out. Let's back up like 2 years when we actually got to go to jiu-jitsu class and hang out at the pub after.
Man,
so we're hanging out at the pub and we're smiling and we're having a good time. How do we know we're having a good time? How do I know that you're having a good time? I mean, I can calibrate it. And
well,
I can see
it's in your mind, right?
I'm imagining it, right? I'm imagining that I'm having a good time. I'm pretty sure I'm correct. but I'm also imagining that everyone else around me is having a good time, and I'm thinking I'm correct because they're laughing and smiling, but I'm imagining that they are enjoying my presence. I'm imagining that we all like being together. And
your
hanging out.
imagination may be accurate or not.
Yeah, and it's irrelevant, I suppose, whether the imagination is true or not, but what determines whether I'm happy in this moment? That I'm imagining that I'm happy, that I'm imagining certain things that are true in my life that make me happy. And I can also imagine that everyone's pissed off at me. The world is just happening to me. I'm at now effect rather than cause. We talk about that a lot.
Yep.
So imagination is this wonderful force that we're all using either to make our lives better or to make our lives worse. And when we decide to change the way we imagine things, that can be powerful too.
Brilliant, Chris. And human givens theory, this fits in as well, because as human beings, we have that ability to go into a meta position and look at things from the outside. We don't know about other animals. Maybe chimps and bottlenose dolphins can, or certainly Egyptian mount cats. But we dissociate, look at it from the outside in our imagination.
Yes.
So we can solve problems by being exterior to them. That's very, very interesting. So imagination is going to fit in nicely with decisiveness in this.
I think so. That so this is the reason why I believe Tony Robbins put the information about decision in the beginning of the book, because you need to understand the power of making a decision, but then you need to now have all of the different brain skills and thinking skills and hypnosis, NLP, whatever it is, to implement stuff. So if you decide that you're going to be a great guitar player and your decision is, okay, I'm going to go to the music store and I'm buying myself a Fender Stratocaster.
Good
Wonderful.
choice.
And there it is sitting in the corner, right? Well, if I don't actually do anything, if I can imagine all day long that I'm a great guitar player, but I have to actually imagine that I'm going to go pick the damn thing up.
Now, that's a damn good point. That's a damn good point, because I knew this guy, Danny, years ago. He was a good friend, not a bad guy at all.
Danny.
But he had this, not still just Danny, but he had this weird thing where he was classic, I guess I should, that kind of guy.
Sure. Yeah.
He never took action in his life. I mean, literally never did. And it was always, he did nothing to further his own life and make it better. Lived in his parents' basement well into his 20s, but he just knew that someday, somehow, he was going to be a somebody.
Yeah, there you go.
He just knew it. He knew it. He imagined that he was. But imagination without decisiveness it's like, it's one of those things that's not good.
Like I'm not saying, if we stick with the guitar playing metaphor, I want to learn to get better at playing guitar. Okay, well, if I imagine that I practice guitar every day, that doesn't make me actually do it. Doesn't make me any better at playing guitar necessarily. But what if I imagine, and this is where in a hypnosis session, a hypnotist might help a client go through visual imagery, guided imagery of imagining that they just love playing guitar and they love looking forward to practicing every day, whatever it is that they do, right? So imagining yourself enjoying something, imagining believing that you are a person who really just loves doing this activity, that'll get you to do it more.
Now, that's right. And you start doing it in the doery, because the brain cannot tell the difference between something real and something vividly imagined, something that any good hypnotist knows. So if you're imagining it and imagining that you're enjoying it, you're really using an aspect of the as if frame here.
Yeah, that's true. And, I'll bring in another little thing that I think is a nice tie-in with imagination. So as you know, we bought a Peloton, one of those spin bikes with the internet connected big TV screen, and you can take cycling classes and stuff. Anyway, one of the instructors said that she remembered when she was young and her dad said to her, "You know what today is?" And she goes, "Well, no, what, Dad?" And he said, "Today is the first day of the rest of your life." It's a common expression. We all know it, right?
Yeah, I'm wondering why we're
talking
talking
about today is the first day of the rest of your life. Because if somebody has had in their imagination a crappy life and some bad stuff has happened to them, and they're holding on to their old baggage. Notice as I'm gesturing off the screen.
Yeah, it's nice. You're anchoring it over there away from me.
It's way over there.
It's nowhere near me.
You're holding on to baggage, and it's making your life crap because you keep thinking about it. Well, if you reframe your life as today is the first day of the rest of my life, you're now putting yourself in a position where you can imagine that you are free of all that crap.
Now, Chris, that's very interesting, because I've just written a new one of our Sunday letters that goes out, and I talk about chapters of life, recognizing when a chapter of life has ended, acknowledging that, deciding it's over, and moving on to something new. And I think you'll like it when you read it.
I like that metaphor that every part of your life is a chapter. When the chapter ends, you turn the page, boom, here's a new chapter.
And it's when we attempt to maintain chapters that are no longer part of our lives. I have a friend who Chris knows well, really nice guy. And he's always, not always, but frequently attempting, we should all get together again and go on another fishing trip. Now, this is what we did years ago. One of the guys in the group is dead, drank himself to death. There's a bunch of stuff has happened and we're not friends anymore.
Closed.
But because he has good memories that stimulate good kinesthetic, good feelings, he's trying to open that chapter again. And you can't go back. You can never go back.
Yeah, and I suppose in his case, he's imagining that relationship and that circle
still
of friends
there.
is still alive, which gives him some pleasure.
Yeah,
I think that's really where we can probably draw a line in the sand here and decide that we'll move on from this topic if you like, but unless you have more to say on it. But
I anticipate I have nothing more to say on it.
We want to imagine that we are, to put it simply, moving. Remember that you want to move towards things that you want and away from things that you don't want.
The dual.
Right? There's the present state, which we can call the stuck state, or there's this target state that we want to move towards.
Yes.
And if we imagine that we are constantly moving towards the things that we do want and away from the things that cause us pain or unhappiness,
yeah.
Use your imagination. Imagine how you can live a better life and then start doing those things.
Well, that's a good point. And as we conclude this, let's just talk about this. Should we imagine the positive improving or the negative dissolving? Well, you've just summed it up. We want to do both.
Yeah.
And in hypnotic trance, since Chris and I subscribe to the model that hypnotic trance is an amplifier of human experience.
Yeah.
So in trance, imagination goes on steroids. If you do these visualizations and so on within the constraints of formal hypnotic trance or not so formal, you'll get stellar results because hypnosis will turn the volume up on it.
I like it. Okay. Where are we going from here?
Well, I think we're going to go to the empowering question.
All right. So we're going to wrap up this podcast after the empowering question. So empowering question for episode 191, right?
191.
Ask yourself, what decisions have I been putting off making, and what are the positive implications of making that decision and taking your first action now?
Nice. And I have a Meta 5 for you, which is one better than a Meta 4. This is interesting. Another true story, Chris. You've never heard this. In the entertainment industry, back when I was doing a lot of hypnosis shows, in the entertainment industry, there are showcases you can go to. Now, a showcase, you typically have to pay to perform there. There's a lengthy procedure, and the powers that be determine who's going to get to perform at the showcase, where you get to do your thing in front of hundreds, maybe thousands of potential buyers who can then do a block booking and saying, we want you in September. Who else wants them in September? Okay. And you can book like 5 gigs in Alberta in September.
Okay.
The COCA conference, Canadian Organization of Campus Activities, is one of those, but there's others. And a number of years ago, one of my agents, Michael White, super nice guy, married to Kay White, and she got me really doing a lot of great gigs. She's the one who put me in Australia and Britain the first time. They found a conference that was happening in London, Ontario. And it was a really interesting one. The buyers were all for county fairs and events like that.
Okay.
So imagine, there's the Minden County Fair, there's all these, and they book on bulk. So you get a whole summer worth of hypnosis shows out of this and get to work all summer, which was the slow time. So he says, go and perform there. You're going to wow them. I know they're going to love it. I was very confident in London, Ontario, show up at the Sheraton Hotel, I believe it was, and go into this room of about 300 buyers from county fairs. And this is going to be great. I'm going to get all these great gigs. That was what was supposed to happen. I was going to go up and wow them and get tons of gigs and make a ton of money. Here's what actually happened. They had scheduled another act in front of me. I wasn't concerned because the other act was a man with a frickin' puppet with strings. And I thought, it's a puppet. This is going to be a piece of cake. The guy goes on and they're all drinking and watching and they're sort of glancing over and he starts his act. And this puppet does this X-rated act of the filthiest material you could possibly imagine. And from the first joke, I thought, he's going to bomb. They loved it. They freaking howled. The damn puppet got standing ovation. You cannot make this stuff up. And I had to go on now after this. All the life is drained out of them. They've laughed their asses off for 20 minutes. I'm going to go and do a hypnosis show. I freaking bombed. I did not get a single gig out of that conference. Just like Spinal Tap, the puppets had a better dressing room than me too.
This has been the Brain Software episode 191. That sounded weird. The Brain Software.
I know.
This has been
The Brain Software
Podcast, episode 191. And I hope that you've all decided that you should get into puppetry. So
That's great.
Enjoy. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Please, if you're watching this on YouTube, drop us a comment. Let us know if you have any questions or comments. We love your ideas. We bring them into future episodes. If you're listening to the audio version of this, feel free to send us an email. If you send it to info@MikeMandelHypnosis.com, it hits both Mike and I's email inboxes. We
Eyes?
love hearing. Yeah, Mike and I's.
Mike's and mine.
Our inbox. There we go. Grammar
touched my
police.
foot.
Our inboxes, we read all our own emails, and we love replying to all. Well, we don't reply to every single email, but most
Hardly
of them.
at all.
And we do read them all. So,
do.
yeah, leave us comments. Let us know what else we can do for you on future podcasts. Thanks again, and
Good
night.
Hey, Chris, I can make you laugh.
Uh-oh.
Now, I want you to try not to even smile, okay?
Okay.
I'm going to use 3 different things to try to make you laugh. Here's the first one. If you weather the first one, I'll go on to the second one.
Okay.
Hee-haw, hee-haw. Okay, that didn't do it. How about this one? I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm Popeye this. Okay, 2 didn't work. This one's got him. How's your cancer working out?
That's not even funny.
It's hilarious. Funny to me.
Okay, that's
Excellent.
a wrap.
Good.
That's a wrap, Ross.
We
Let's
move
just
on.
do a silence check real quick. Oh, I'm really nervous.